full. And seriously, I know that that is controversial. There's a video that I stitched about a year ago over on TikTok that I shared recently on YouTube. And oh my God, the comments are unhinged. So in the original video, I don't know if you've seen it, but the original video was a guy, a parent, who had maybe a 5-year-old child at home, and he brings out a stud finder after the child says that they're finished. He pretend this is the stud finder. He brings it out and he puts it up to the child's belly and says, "Oh, says you've got room for 2 more broccolis." And then there's a video of the kid eating the broccoli. And I stitched that video, and I really could have torn it apart for a million reasons, which I will do on this live. But I basically said, like, nobody knows when you're full. You don't know when your child is full. It's not good for so many reasons to be the one who's like, no, actually, you're not full. Imagine if your spouse came home and you were having dinner together, or you went out to eat and your spouse said, "Oh, you've eaten more than that before. You need to finish eating. You're clearly not done. I've seen you eat more than that before. You need to keep eating." What the fuck? That's insane. We would never do that to another, well, maybe a psychopath would, but most people wouldn't do that to another adult. So why are we doing that to a child? And a lot of the comments on YouTube, I just finished replying to them. They were like, "Are you even a parent? Do you even know what it's like to have children? And children need to eat their vegetables, and this is important." Okay, first of all, whether or not a person has a child or not doesn't mean, that's not a qualification. Having a child doesn't make you qualified to be anything other than being a parent. So yes, I do have children, but even if I didn't, that is not indicative of my ability to do my job. Just like you wouldn't go, just because like you have teeth doesn't mean you can be a dentist. So, and also, it's usually men who make those comments. And I also don't think people would make those comments if I was a man. So think about that for a second. And if you have a reason to ask that question, I'd love to know. Like, please, if you're watching this and you're like, "Oh, I know why I might ask that question. Do you have children?" I'd love to know, because honestly, I don't understand it. So please feel free to share. Okay, so let's address some of the comments. We've addressed the "do you have children" one. It's a stupid question. It doesn't matter. Next comment was, "Oh, he's trying to get his child to eat something healthy like broccoli. That's a good thing." Okay, maybe in the short term it's a good thing, but most parents that I've worked with, that I've spoken to, parents from online that send me messages, most of them are looking at the long-term goal. They want their child to be a teenager and an adult who decides to go out to dinner with their friends and orders a salad or orders something and decides to eat their vegetables because they want to, not because they remember, "Oh, when I was 3 years old, my mum told me that I have to eat my vegetables." We want them to do it because they want to do it. So coercing your child to eat 2 more broccolis in the short term may seem like a huge win, like, yes, they've eaten broccoli. But in the long term, are you helping your child actually learn to like that food? No, you're not. So going back to my example before, of if I came home and I went up to my spouse and said, "Oh, I've got this like little thing that I can put it up to your stomach and it'll tell me if you're still hungry, and it says that you could still keep eating." That is unhinged behavior. And if someone said that to me and like actually forced me to keep eating, it wouldn't make my experience eating that meal positive. It would make it very negative. I'd probably not want to eat dinner with that person ever again. And I wouldn't want to eat the food that they're telling me to eat. So like if they told me to eat more broccoli, it might make me dislike broccoli more. And this is supported by research, that when children are forced or coerced or cajoled to eat something that they don't want to eat, that actually makes their experience with that food more unpleasant and makes them less likely to want to eat it in the future. So you're completely shooting yourself in the foot in the long term, which, as I mentioned earlier, most parents are concerned about the long term, not just the short term. So that's a really important thing to think about. All right, let me think. What were some of the other comments in this on this video? Oh, saying that I've completely missed the point of the video. I'd love to know what the point that I've missed was, because the point that I got from the video is I see a parent coercing a child to eat something that they clearly said they don't want to eat. So you could say that maybe he kind of tried to make it fun. Okay, you can get props for trying to make it fun. I'll give you a better example of what you could do to make it fun. Let's say, first of all, I wouldn't wait till the child says they're full, because at that point you should believe that your child is telling you the truth and work from that point. So let's work backwards before the child says they're full. If you sit down to a meal that you've got, like, I don't know, a chicken schnitzel and some pasta and a side of green beans or something, and broccoli. Let's make it broccoli and green beans. And you've noticed after a couple of minutes your child isn't eating the broccoli and the green beans. You might say after a couple of minutes, oh, hey, like, did you notice that I put butter in the broccoli? I just tried mine and it's quite nice and buttery. And I also added a little bit of garlic, and that makes it taste almost like garlic bread. It's like garlic butter on the broccoli. I wouldn't say anything about, have you eaten it? Do you want to try some? Have some of mine? You must try some. I wouldn't be saying any of those things. So that's the first thing that you could do. You can make it fun by picking it up and pretending it's a tree, or you could make it interact with the schnitzel that you've got on your plate and make it like talk to it or do something. Like, you can do a lot of other things. There are a lot of ways that you can make food fun, and making food fun is one of the big things that I utilize when I talk about how to change communication. This is all communication. If we bring the silly little thing that says, oh, you're still hungry, you can still eat more, that's communication. If we talk to the child about the broccoli flavor, that's communication. If we tell them you need to eat a bite, that's communication. If we sit there and we just look at them and you make a comment about, I really like this broccoli, I think it's quite tasty, that's communication. So injecting fun into mealtimes is really important. Not coercing children. That is pressure. And pressure breeds more pickiness because children know what you're doing. I bet you this child was sitting there thinking, I don't really want to eat the broccoli, but dad's making me do it. So you're in a position of power and authority. And depending what kind of a parent you are, if you're someone who left some of these comments, you're probably not a very compassionate parent, and your child might do it just so that you don't yell at them. That's not a good reason to eat broccoli. All right, so that's my breakdown on why coercion and coercing children to do things is not a good idea. Living life as if when your child is full, not a great idea. It doesn't set you up for a very nice relationship with your child. Imagine having a conversation with your spouse and you're telling them about your day. Oh gosh, I had such a difficult day. Imagine if your spouse was like, but how difficult was it really? You'd be like, why can't you just believe me and take me at my word? That's the experience of that person, the experience of your child. Like, why would you immediately shut that down? It's not very nice for your relationship as an adult. And also you've got to think about your relationship with your child. They're not going to be a child forever. They're going to be an adult. So we need to build that relationship, and that should be at the forefront of what we're trying to do here. All right. So I might bring up a few more things from that, from the comment section, if I can remember any more, because I don't have them in front of me. But I'm going to open this to a little bit of a Q&A, because I haven't done one for a while. I was telling when I went live on TikTok first, and I kind of said the last month has been absolutely crazy. I've been working on a project that is outside my private practice, which is super exciting, and it's wonderful. It's taken up a lot of time, and with the Easter break, and we had a family staying with us, so it's been really busy. All right, thank you so much for sharing the live. And Shannon, I'm going to go back to your question. And hi, Joss. Hi, Matt. Oh my gosh, what is it? The project? I'm working on a book, but it's not a book for myself. It's actually a textbook, and it's really cool. I'm really excited about it, and I'm a little bit over halfway through it, so I'm really pleased with that. So it's nice to flex a different muscle from counseling and stuff. That's great. All right, so let me go. If you've got questions about picky eaters, put them into, if you're on Instagram, can you tap on the little balloon, it's a speech bubble that's got the question mark on it, and I will answer some questions. And then I've got to go, because this is the first day, and well, actually I lie. Monday was a day that I didn't have calls and I was catching up on life things, but I'm still catching up on life things today. And I've got to go to Aldi later, and I've got to go pick up some yarn because I'm making my daughter a pillow, and I've run out of one of the colors that I need to use for her. Okay. Edith, I joined in this late. What would you do where the child does not eat but always wants to eat 10 minutes after? Okay, Edith, I'm going to treat this like I would if I was having a discovery call with you, where I need to ask you a lot more questions. So please reply, add a comment so that we can continue to troubleshoot this. How old is your child? And does this happen with every meal? Does it just happen with dinner? Does it happen with snacks? So that's a good number of questions for me to ask you. How old is your child? And does it only happen with dinner? Does it happen at lunchtime? Does it happen after breakfast? So give me your answers to that, and we'll come back to that. So I can give you, I would like to give you a little bit of some helpful advice while we're here. Kimma, any tips for anxiety-driven picky eaters? Yes. How old is the child in question? And also, can you describe the anxiety? Is it that the child is like running away when they see the food? Are they screaming like, no, I don't want that? Tell me a little bit about what that anxiety looks like, because it looks different for different kids. I can give you, like, most commonly it looks like the child having a meltdown, where they'll scream and shout. They might not come to the table. I don't want that. You can't make me eat that. That's gross. That's yuck. That's something as well. So Kimma has come back and said she's 10 years old, or he's 10 years old. They are 10 years old. Eats the same 8 things, cries and starts to panic, gags too. Okay. You could correct me if I'm wrong. Usually, in the experience that I've had coaching parents, if the child is not always. Sometimes children gag at the smell of things, and just the look of things. That can be like a slight aversion. Generally, when it's not that, the reason that I have seen children gag is because they think they're going to be forced to try it. And think about it. If I was to put something that you find disgusting in front of you and asked you to eat it, and like going back to coercion, coerced you to try a bite, you would gag too, or you might feel like gagging. You might be like, oh, I can't, I really don't want to. So let me know if that's something. If you're somebody who has tried to coerce your child to try something, which a lot of parents do this because we want to try things and we want them to eat things. We just don't always know a better way of doing it. So let me know if that sounds familiar for your child. Okay, yes, you have. All right, look, I say this to everybody that I get on a discovery call with, because there's always a parent. I had a call the other day actually with a new client, and she just said, yep, I'm doing that, and I don't like that I'm doing that. And she knew that, and she even said, like, I know this isn't the right thing to do, but she didn't know a different way to do it. So, and what I kind of said to her is, look, what matters now is that you've identified that. We're going to come up with a better way of doing it. And then you can forgive yourself for, like, you can't change what you have done, but you can change what you're going to do. And you can talk to your child about it, especially if your child is 10 years old. That conversation may look something like, hey, look, I know I've asked you in the past to try something, and I can see that that's made you uncomfortable. You could explore their feelings a little bit further. Like, tell me how that felt for you. Did it make you feel uncomfortable? Did it make you sad? Talk about that. And then you can say, look, I'm not going to do that from now on. Instead, let's try something different. And then you can perhaps suggest that she try whatever the thing is. Can she put a sauce on it? Can she put something that she really does like? Can she pair it with something that might make it more enjoyable? So that way you're troubleshooting it from the child's perspective, rather than, I want you to try this because I made it for you and you owe it to me to try it. That's the thing. And it's a hard part of being a parent, is that children don't owe us things. They don't owe us respect. They don't owe us any of those things. They don't owe it to us to try our food. And we're the adult. We're the adults in the room, and we're supposed to be the ones who can handle that. And it's hard, but we have to. All right, I'm going back on Instagram to see if I can find where Edith responded. If you could please if you're on Instagram, could you please put your the questions and follow-ups into the little speech bubble with the question mark on it, because then I don't have to scroll, and I might miss things if I have to scroll because I can't always see. All right, I'm looking for Edith's reply. Okay, Edith, you said your grandkids, 6 and twin 3-year-olds. Okay. So, and did you tell me if it's happening after every meal? Does it happen with, like, after? The question was, what do you do if a child is asking for a snack? Like, what do you do if your child's asking for a snack like 10 minutes after a meal? And I asked, what meal is that happening with it? Is it all meals? Is it just breakfast? Is it just dinner? So that's the kids' ages, 2 3-year-olds and a 6-year-old. I'd want to look at why that's happening. And if the reason I would think that that's happening, tell me if I'm wrong, please, is that if you've created a meal for dinner, for example, that doesn't really have anything reliable for those children in it, and they don't eat very much, they would be hungry 10 minutes later. And they're hopeful that you'll give them a snack because a crinkly bag snack is super easy to like and enjoy. And the kid is more likely to eat a crinkly bag snack than they would that main meal. So it's really important to have a meal and snack schedule. If this is a completely new concept for you, I've got a lot of resources. One, I've got videos on my YouTube channel. One of them is about how to create a schedule. And I've also got an entire course called Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, that if you're in damage control mode, that's the course that you want to take if your child is over 12 months old. If you are getting on top of this early and your child is a baby who is in their first year of life, Fuss-Free First Foods is another course that I created so that you can avoid all of these problems when you hit toddlerhood. And if you've got a child who is obsessed with sweets, I've got a course called Fuss-Free First Foods. And if your child is, which is commonly the case, both a picky eater and obsessed with sweets, these two often go hand in hand, not always, but often, because sweet things and junk food are really highly palatable. They're really easy to like for a person who is selective. And also the texture is, it's routinely the same versus like strawberries. They can look different. They're different sizes. They can taste wildly different from each other. So there's a lot more variation. So if you're working on both picky eating and a fixation on sweets or junk food, my course bundle, which combines both of those courses together, allows you to get started on both issues. You have to work on the picky eating because that is the underlying reason that your child has a fixation on sweets. So you need to work on both of those things. So you can get the course bundle, and it'll save you some money as well. All right. Bad habits at home. So that could be that the parent is making a dinner that is too difficult for the child to actually eat enough of, so they are hungry, and then the child asks for a snack after dinner, and the parents then become afraid, well, they didn't really eat much dinner, I don't want them to be hungry and go to bed hungry, so then I give them a snack. And this reinforces this. It is a bad behavior. It's a poor cycle for everybody. It's not good for the parent or for the child. So you can work it backwards by having something that's more reliable at dinner. And that's something that I work on in my small coaching group. At the moment, we're just starting week 5 today. And the parents pretty much across the board are saying that there's much less anxiety and stress at mealtimes. Several different kids have tried new foods, and a lot of them are trying new combinations. One parent messaged me in the chat that her child originally was only eating plain pasta. It's the second time now that he has mixed sauce into the pasta and eaten it successfully. So that's a huge change. All right, what's my take on ARFID, Liz? I'm not sure how to answer that. Are you asking me to talk about what it is, or how I would go about helping a child that has ARFID? And across all the channels, if that's something that you want me to talk more about, ask me a question because I'd love to answer it. All right, Zoe says, hi, 2.5-year-old, says he's full after 2 bites of dinner, wants yogurt or banana smoothie or chocolate 10 to 15 minutes after we all leave the table. Will not eat anything until just before bedtime. All right, so it's really good that he's so young because it's not great when we let these problems fester till when they're 5 years old. So again, with your meal and snack schedule, depending on the length of time between your child having dinner and going to bed, I'll give you just the example of what it is for my kids. We eat dinner around 5:30. We're usually done by 6. Bedtime for my littlest one is around 7, and the older one starts pottering around for bedtime, and she's lights out by 8 o'clock. There's no need for a snack in that time. But if your child is going to bed at, say, 9 or 9:30, and you finish dinner at 6, they might need a snack in that time, a small one. But chances are with your 2.5-year-old, you don't need that. And it's going to prolong bedtime. It's going to set your routine backwards. That's not good for you, and it's not good for the child either. And it's also giving them too much control, because in the mealtime roles, I've got a whole video on this. If this is a new concept to you, go to my YouTube channel. It's one of the top 5 videos, Mealtime Roles Explained. One of your mealtime roles is deciding when food is served, which is the schedule. And it's not up to your child to dictate that. That is your job as the parent. So my recommendation would be, if your child wants like a banana or a smoothie or something like that routinely after the meal, try to find a way to incorporate that into the meal, because that would be more enticing for them to come to the table and gives them a better opportunity to try other things. And it also makes it a little bit easier to say no later, because you don't have to say no as in no, we're not doing that. You might say, we've already had dinner, and we're doing this now, whether it's bath or teeth or reading a book or chilling out, going on a walk, whatever it is. So that just makes it a little bit easier for you to reply to that afterwards. And all these communication changes, by the way, they're really not difficult to make. And my online course has like an entire handout on phrases to say. I've got a free phrase guide that's got like my top 3 phrases in it, but the online course has like a very extensive list of things to help you direct the conversation in a positive way, in a gentle way, in a respectful way, to help you at mealtimes. All right, I'm scrolling back through comments and I saw a name that I recognize, Raquel, who's a past client of mine. She says, "Hi, Talia. You're amazing. Our family is so grateful to you. We worked together several years ago. You've actually been on my mind. I need to send you an email and see how you and the kiddos are going." I highly recommend her. We're in therapy right now. She's amazing. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Like, I really do appreciate the kind words. I really do. Do the course if you're concerned. Liz says, how do you identify? Oh, this is back to the ARFID question. How do you identify it or know the difference between a picky eater and someone with the disorder? Sorry, question was too general. Okay, what you can do, Liz, if you're concerned that your child might have it, what you could send me a private message and we can chat more and I can help. I don't diagnose it. Usually it's a pediatrician or a psychiatrist who will do the diagnosis. But what you can also do is, I hate going to Google for these sorts of things, but if you read one of the fact sheets for parents about ARFID, you can read through the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for it. It's more common than people realize. It's still rare though. So like I had a client that I was talking to today and they were like, I'm not sure if our daughter has ARFID or not. And she doesn't exhibit, like this child doesn't exhibit a lot of the things that would be major red flags for me. So let me put out some of my major red flags. If your child has an extremely limited diet, like I'm talking, the red flag level is 20 foods or less. That's like, when we're at that point or close to that point, that's a red flag. But someone with ARFID, they may only have 10 safe foods. I don't like to call them that. I call them reliable foods. They may only have 10 reliable foods. They may find it very difficult. Like let's say one of their reliable foods is strawberries. They may find it really, really difficult to eat a strawberry that's not a perfectly round red strawberry. If they have white on the top of it, or if it's like slightly like really dark, like almost like, you know, when they're like really, really juicy and they're very, very red, they might not be able to accept that. So it's to the point where there are such rigid rules for them about what they can eat. And it's also accompanied with anxiety around trying new foods. It's different from something like anorexia nervosa, where like there's no concerns about weight. The child's not worried about, oh, I'm going to eat that and gain weight. That wouldn't qualify them to have ARFID. So what you can do is have a read online about what some of the like major telltale signs are. You can also reach out to me. And if you are worried and you want to talk to your pediatrician, make an appointment with them. But before you go and see them, make sure that they know what ARFID is, because I cannot tell you how many parents from all over the world in different countries reach out and say, my doctor doesn't even know what ARFID is. Then they can't diagnose it if they don't know what it is, because some doctors will just tell you, no, they're just a picky eater. That's not okay. And I want you to know that that's not okay. If you have a legitimate concern that your child may have ARFID, if your doctor is like, I don't really know what that is, go find a different doctor. Like, please do that. All right. I got a little bit, that really works me up. It's not okay that, like doctors are the gold standard for most parents. And if the doctor says things are fine, you really have no recourse. You can't really argue with the doctor, can you? So make sure you find a doctor that actually understands what ARFID is, if that's a concern. All right, I'm going and having a look in the question box. Thank you for putting questions into the question thing in Instagram. Boy 2.5 is a selective eater, a selective picky eater. He has very, very little of each food group of any food, any advice. Oops. Oh, Oh, Edith, I tapped on your comment. You take a look at the courses. Okay, great. That's good. And there's also, like I said, I have a lot of videos on YouTube as well, where if you're not sure that you want to do the course, like go and check out some of the YouTube videos, because there's some of those are like really in-depth and helpful. Okay. Edith, all right, let me come back to that question in a second. So the 2.5-year-old selective eater doesn't eat very much from each food group. The good news is that he's still really young and you're getting on top of it right away. The worst thing that you can do is just think it's going to get better, and then you're going to have a child who's 5 years old who is going to be going to school soon, and you can only send the same things on repeat. Like, that's not a good thing. So the earlier you can identify it, the earlier you can start working on it. What I usually suggest as a go-to for a younger child is the online course, 100%. And that is because generally it's easier to make these changes, and the child is more likely to go along with it because they're not old enough to kind of have the logical argument with you, and it's easier to get on top of it when they're younger. So the online course, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, would be my first port of call. If you're somebody who's like listening to this and you're like, no, I just kind of want like practical support and advice, I recommend reaching out to me and asking me about my May coaching group. That's my next group. They always sell out early. And in the month of April, I've got a 15% early bird special at the moment. So you'll get it at the best price it'll be at. And you'll also get access to the online courses now when you register, so you can start working on them. It's really, really helpful, because once you clear up some of, like, for example, let's say you don't keep to a schedule and your child's grazing all day, you can fix that before we even get into the group. And then by the time the group starts, you'll have uncovered some different issues that we will be able to work on in the group. So anybody who's listening, if that sounds like something you want to do, send me a private message. Say, hey, I found you. Like, I saw you on the live. You mentioned the group that starts in May. Can you give me some more information? Send me a little message as well. Tell me how old your child is and what your top 2 to 3 problems are, because that's something that I'm going to ask you, because I want to make sure that you are a good fit for small coaching. If I've got somebody who has a child that has diagnosed ARFID or has like multiple other complexities, I almost never will take you in the small coaching group, because I won't be able to give you enough support. Okay, so I see a comment from Catherine here. Atticus ate a frozen chocolate-covered banana we made tonight. So that is that's a new food, right? That's a new food and a new combination. And he made it, and he was willing to accept it in a different form. So there's a lot of things going on with this. I want to just pause for a second and utilize this, because when we change the temperature of something, that's a way that we're changing the exposure to it as well. Because a frozen banana has a different smell. It doesn't have the same smell. It smells less. It has a different texture than a fresh banana. And bananas generally can, like, if you eat them when they're slightly green versus spotty, they're very different in taste, flavor, and texture. So by changing the temperature, you're also making that a new challenge for the child, which is really great. And if you're covering it with chocolate, you might be making it a little bit easier for them to eat it if they really like chocolate. So that's amazing. That's awesome. So it is a new food and a combination. Please post that in the chat as well. That's great. So in our small coaching group, we meet every week, and the reason parents make progress in, like, 8 weeks is a really short time. There are lots of things that, like, parents make great progress in the 8 weeks, because a lot of the things that we're changing and tweaking are stopping your child drinking 30 ounces of milk in a day, or we're not letting the child graze all day so that they actually have an appetite for meals. These are a lot of the, like, these are really easy tweaks, but oftentimes parents need help implementing them. How do I tell my child that they're not going to have TV at mealtimes? How do I talk through that my child is no longer going to be able to snack all afternoon? Like, these are the things that we need help with, that parents, like, setting the boundaries and talking to kids. And most of the time when we do that, like in the group, most of the feedback, it's rare that I have a parent who's like, my child screamed and threw a huge fit and they were unhappy. I do have one kid at the moment, the 7.5-year-old, who is struggling with the removal of screens. And that one is a trickier one, but we are working through it. But most of the time, like, when we're decreasing the amount of milk the child is drinking, we're not doing it in a way where the child is having a traumatic experience with it. The child accepts it and is okay with it. We're not asking for permission, because that's not our job either. But it is our job to do it in a way that is not going to cause more damage and more harm and more anxiety and stress for everybody. All right. So quick question. Edith asked, Should there always be a safe food? Great question. I'm going to change safe to reliable. And the reason I don't say safe, I don't like to say the word safe food, because if your child hears you say this, that makes them think, oh, there are unsafe foods. Unless you're somebody who is going to have an anaphylactic reaction to peanuts, for example. In that case, peanuts is not a safe food for you to eat, because you literally could die if you ate that. But like, if your child doesn't eat carrots, it's not a dangerous food to them. Call it, it's not a reliable food. It's not reliable for them. It's not something that they're going to eat routinely. So let's first change that perspective and mentality for you as the parent. All right, so should there always be a reliable food? Yes, there should be. Because if there isn't, imagine if I put a plate of monkey's brains in front of you and said, this is dinner. I don't know how many of you eat monkey's brains routinely. I don't. I would try it, but if someone gave me just a plate of monkey's brains, I'd be like, oh, well, what if I don't like that? What if I want to eat something else? It's a respectful thing to have multiple different foods. Not even respectful. Like, think about what you had for dinner last night. Even if you had a PB&J, you probably had something with it. You might have had a salad. You might have had a veggie. You might have had something left over from the other night. You would have had multiple different foods with your meal. And it is important to make sure something that is reliable is there for your child. Otherwise, your child might not want to come to the table. If they see monkey's brains on the table, if it was me, I would try it. But most people might not try it. You need to have something that is going to help them come to the table. That is important. Yes, that's my answer. All right, I digress. I've had a few questions come in on TikTok, and I've been ignoring them. So bear with me. Let me scroll back for a second and have a look. All right, 5-year-old has no problem trying new things, but will only ever take one small bite and say she doesn't like it. Okay, it's great that she's trying things, and that's really positive. Remember too, this is something that we often forget as adults. Sometimes when we try something new, we might not mind the taste of it or the flavor at the beginning, but there comes a point where if you keep eating it, you might be like, oh, I kind of have had enough of that. That's enough of that new thing. Well, that's enough of that thing. So for example, I'll give you my example. I really don't like raw onions. I don't like them in a salad. I don't like them anywhere. Although a friend of mine, when she was staying with me recently, she soaked red onion in water for like 15 minutes before putting it in the salad. And it took out that like super crunchy, super like astringent taste that sticks in your mouth. Because I find if I eat a raw onion, anything in a salad, I cannot get rid of the taste. Even if I brush my teeth, I still taste raw onion. So that's the reason I don't eat it. But I tried it. My friend changed, like she soaked it and told me about it. And I was like, yeah, great. And I found a way to accept that. But if she'd have put an entire onion into this salad and most of the salad was onion, I probably would have gotten to the point where I was like, I've had enough onion. That's enough. So it's okay for a child to try something a couple of times and be like, oh, cool, but I don't want any more of it right now. So I know that's not the case that's happening that you mentioned, but I did want to mention that as something to think about as well. So she says she doesn't like it. Is there any pressure for her to continue to eat it? Does she get something afterwards? So I spoke about this in my stories the other day where someone said that when they were a child, their mother made them try something, and then if they didn't like it, the mum would make them something else. If it's something like that, well, then the child is incentivized to say they don't like it. It's really shooting yourself in the foot because you're giving your child the easiest out they possibly could. Try a bite, which is coercion, and pressure. We don't want that. But it's also you're letting them know, if you don't like it, I'll make you something else. It's pretty rare that a child would be like, oh, actually, I like this thing. I'm going to keep eating it. If it was me, I'd be like, yes, make me a peanut butter sandwich, please. So just be careful that you're not shooting yourself in the foot with that. All right, RCB. My son will be 4 at the end of April. He has nothing other than his bottle and yogurt and cookies, Jell-O and chocolate. That's really, as you would know, and you probably don't need me to point it out, that is very restrictive. So my question about the bottle, is it a baby bottle? And how much milk is he drinking in a day? So I worked with a client, I just finished working with a client about a month ago, who, when we started working together, her daughter was 5, has ASD. She was drinking 36 ounces of Pediasure from a bottle every day. That's why she wasn't eating, because she had no appetite. And that's a really dangerous place to be when your child is leaning really heavily on milk. So the recommended guideline for milk for children over 12 months old is no more than 16 ounces, which is about 450 mils. That, in my experience, is usually too much, because if your child is drinking that 3 times a day, you're knocking back their hunger. Even if they're drinking 6, 12, 18, let's say they're drinking 6 ounces, 6 ounces, and 4 ounces, breakfast, lunch, dinner. If they really don't like the other options that you're serving, you've given them something that will knock back their hunger, and they just won't eat. So that really, you got to be careful with milk. That's a really tricky, sneaky one that tends to fall under the radar. All right, Rox Fox says you're stressing over your 20-month-old being picky. Can you tell me more about what specifically? What are the issues that you're having? Are they rejecting everything that you put in front of them? Are you making them something separate? Are you saying, would you like this? No. Would you like this? No. Would you like this? No. How are you, like, tell me a little bit more about that situation. What is ASD? Autism spectrum disorder. So yeah, ASD, autism. So Rox Fox, or this really goes for anybody. Like, describe, what does pickiness mean to you? So when you say you're stressing because your 20-month-old is picky, what is happening that is the problem? Is it that they're refusing all the food that you put in front of them? Are they asking you, they're saying, I want snacks only? What exactly is happening? All right. Oh, hang on. Sorry. I clicked on your question, but I wasn't able to read the whole thing. Brittany, 2.5-year-old who won't try anything, even with zero pressure, makes disgusted sounds when offered something new. Pediatrician advised to offer only what we're eating, plus a safe food, and don't make her something different that she'll eat when she gets hungry enough. Thoughts on this? Okay, that's not the worst advice I've ever heard from a pediatrician, but that doesn't say very much. Okay. First question, Brittany, when did this start happening? Has it been going on for a while? So my question is, did this start happening when she was, like, usually it starts around 18 months, like between 12 and 18 months is when it typically tends to start, because that's when they start to be able to say no to things. So my question is, when did it start, and how did you deal with it when it started? Did you make something else? Were you catering and giving her something different? What were you doing then? That piece is really, really important. When we work together, that's something that I need to understand. Okay, so I do agree. It is good advice to make and present one meal, what you're eating with the rest of your family, and making sure there is a reliable food there. I'm not calling it a safe food. I'm calling it a reliable food. So yes, I do. I think that is good advice. I don't think it's good advice to say she'll eat when she gets hungry enough, because some children, and it's too young at 2.5 years old to diagnose whether there's any kind of, whether your child has any sort of neurodivergence, which may or may not exist, whether it's ADHD, whether it's autism. It could be, it could not be. We don't know at that point. But there are children who have those conditions that will not eat when they get hungry. So I really don't like that advice, because it can set you up as the parent to really engage in a power struggle. It's basically a game of chicken that you're playing with your child, and it doesn't put you in a position of, I'm trying to be the right parent for my child. I'm trying to be understanding and caring and thoughtful, because if you're doing those things, you're not going to say to your child, you're not going to have the battle in your mind of, well, I'm just going to starve you out until you eat it. That's not helpful mentality in the long term. So I would not recommend going in that thought process. All right, so I'll wait. If you're still in the live, put your answer in for me so I can so that I can understand in a little bit more detail. All right, I'm jumping back over to TikTok. Rox, I don't know if you're still on here. I haven't seen a response from you about what exactly is the pickiness for you. So Tiffany says, my nephew is taking more and more out of his diet. My sister is heartbroken and worried to death. 4-year-old nephew is having quite a lot of breakdowns or tantrums along with not eating. Worried now, ASD. Can you work with clients virtually? Okay, let me answer each of those questions, because there's a few different things to break down there. It could be ASD. It's not there. That's you can't diagnose it that way, and it may or it may not be. And actually, I was working the client that I saw this morning. Their child is too young to be diagnosed with anything, but they suspect that she has ASD. And they asked me, "Do you have special like things that you can use, like that you would give us to do if our child was diagnosed with ASD?" And the answer is no. Especially when I'm working with you one-on-one, I'm looking at the child in front of me. It doesn't matter to me if they have a diagnosis, because there are some children who are diagnosed ASD. Like I had one boy in one of my groups, last group. He was 4 years old. He was a level 2, I think a level 1 ASD. It was very, very mild, and it was indicated he could join the group, and he did have really good success. He was able to start eating vegetables during the course of the 8-week group, which is really amazing. If you've got a child who is really severe with their ASD, that's different, because I don't want to get too far off on a tangent. But to answer your question, whether the child has ASD or not. So this child that was in the group, he didn't have some of the other symptoms or issues that some of my more severe clients with ASD have. So it's not like I have a neurodiverse toolbox and a neurotypical toolbox. I'm looking at the kid in front of me, whether or not they have ASD or ADHD or not. If I've got a child who is not eating or who's routinely skipping meals, doesn't matter to me whether they are diagnosed with ASD or not. I have tools that I will give you to use for that child. If your child is sensitive to soft foods and they prefer crunchy foods, whether they have an ASD or diagnosis of any kind or not, there are tools that I know that will help that child. So okay. I'm stumbling over my own words. Yes, I do work virtually with clients. Tiffany, you can reach out to me, send me a private message, let me know that you came from the live, and just give me like a bit of a background of what's going on. And I'd be able to set up a time to chat with, I don't know if it would be your sister or your brother, but your nephew's parent, that we could chat with. The problem is when we get into a place of being really, really worried, that's when we tend to, like, out of fear, we will say, like, you have to eat this, you have to try this. It's because we're in a place of fear, which again comes down to our communication. How are we supposed to meet the 1,000 calorie per day? It's so much. I can't say I've really ever been asked that question before. By eating a variety of foods, really. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Stuti. Depending on, well, what are the issues that you're facing? Is the child that you're asking about, are they not accepting foods? Because generally speaking, this is kind of like protein requirements. Protein requirements are not actually that high for children. It's not hard to reach protein requirements. Like half a cup of Greek yogurt has like a lot. I don't have the exact figures off the top of my head, but that's like more than a third of a child's protein requirements in a day. So it's not worth counting grams of protein, milligrams of iron, calories. It's not worth doing that. Look more at, is my child eating a variety of all the foods from all the food groups multiple times a day? That's what you need to be looking at. And is my child growing normally? Although that's not always helpful. It'd be like saying, and this does happen, where you have, I've worked with several kids that only eat 5 foods, but they're high on their quote unquote BMI scale, and they're at the 99th percentile, and the doctor's like, well, they're growing normally, so that can't be a problem. But it is a problem. If your child's only eating 5 foods, they might be meeting their calorie requirements, but they're not meeting all their nutrient requirements. So that's something to think about as well. Kristen says the dentist gave you a list of good and bad foods. The only bad foods that exist are ones that are rotten or poisonous or spoiled or something. There's no bad foods. They don't have a moral value. Please don't feel shamed. Oh my God, they do this in schools too, and it is really shameful. And in fact, someone actually sent me a book that they'd written. I don't know why, but I have this book still, and it's in my kid's bedroom. And one of my daughters picked it out to read earlier, and I said, I'm going to change the way the book's written, because it was talking about like ninja foods and like, I can't remember what they labeled the bad foods, but they gave it a different cutesy name for it, which is just as bad as calling them bad foods. Like, we don't want our children to feel shame for wanting chocolate. I want chocolate all day long. That doesn't make me a bad person. Like, come on, like we can do better as a society. Okay. Torianne, I'm a pediatric occupational therapist and always getting referrals for picky eaters being sensory, but I find it's more behavioral and family dynamics. You know what? You've hit the nail on the head. Like a lot of it is behavioral, and a lot of it is the way that parents respond to kids, which is why I say everything comes down to communication. Because whether or not we set a boundary is communication, and how we set the boundary is communication. We can say to the child, there's no TV at dinner, but then the child goes and turns on the TV. If we don't go and turn the TV off, we're not enforcing the boundary. So yeah, like a lot of it is very much behavioral and family dynamics. I completely agree with you. And Torianne, I don't know, like, you feel free to reach out to me in a private message. I've had a few other health professionals reach out, like wanting to like troubleshoot cases, or like do like also furthering like your learning into like this side of like the picky eating. So if that's something that you want to do, like feel free to reach out to me. I worked with a kindergarten over in Germany. We're about halfway through. We've done 2 calls together, and they've made some changes already to like the snacks that they serve and how they serve things, and that they've noticed a huge impact on the children actually eating the foods now. There's much less food throwing. There's much less rejection of things. Obviously, things still get rejected. I'm not like no one's a miracle worker. No one's fixing every problem, but there are a lot of like small changes that you can make that are really not that difficult to make that make a huge difference. Okay, going back to wait. There are new. I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes here. All right, I'm gonna thank you so much, Brittany, for putting your answer into my question box so that I can read it. So I'm gonna come back to that. So your original question was the 2.5-year-old who had no pressure, makes a disgusted sound, and the pediatrician said to just serve your dinner and a reliable food, and she'll eat when she's hungry. So you said, yes, it started around 11, 12 months. We would often cook her something else, fearing she wasn't getting enough at the time. Okay, so thank you for being vulnerable and saying that. There's no judgment here. I tell this to every person that we work with. I'm not ever here to judge you. I'm here because you want my help, and the way I can help you is by knowing exactly what's happened, even if it's something that you don't love that has happened. So, and it's not a bad thing that you've done that. In fact, when a parent tells me like I made them something else, or when the doctor says starve them out, and the parent says I caved and I gave them food, like that's fucking crazy. You're not a bad parent for wanting your child to eat, you're not a bad parent for wanting your child to eat. And there are ways that we can improve the situation so that you're not put in a situation where you're starving your child or you feel like you have to make something separate. So I don't recommend making separate things. And in the courses, I go through like what to do instead. So depending where you're at, how stuck you think you are, go take a look at the Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course. It's $149. It's like $3 a lesson. There's so much value in that course that will help you change your meal times from being where you're making separate meals or your child's grazing all day, where you can make like changes today. Like the course is broken down into small modules of like 5 to 8 minutes so that you can, even if you don't get through the entire course today, you could sit down and do it during nap time. I created it so that it's as fluff-free as possible so that you can start making changes today, because the longer the course sits there and you haven't done very much on it, like it's where I want you to actually implement what you learn in the course, and they're easy changes to make. Okay, so oh my goodness, TikTok has just said that I've been inactive on here and they're going to close the live in 1 minute. I did say I needed to go soon, but I don't like to be kicked off my own live. All right, I've fixed the issue. Okay, so that's my answer to helping remove the separate meals and making one meal. And then if you're still feeling stuck, I would recommend checking out the Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course. The link to that is in my bio. You can always send me a private message too if you're somebody who's like, Yeah, I'm interested in doing the course, but I also want more help. I've got a 2-year-old in my small coaching group at the moment, and I've worked with a few, like in my group, like 3 groups ago. Most of the kids were between like 2 and 3, 2 and 4. So that can be really helpful too. If you just like, when you join the group, you get access to the course anyway, so you can work through it now. But we do troubleshoot in way more detail. So this mum, the one with the 2-year-old, screens were an issue. Making a separate meal was an issue. The child wasn't eating from a variety of all the food groups. That was an issue. Milk was an issue, but we've sorted that out, which is great. Screens we're sorting out. He's sick at the moment, so they've gone back a little bit, but we're working towards being consistent. So if you're interested in the group, just reach out and send me a private message and say, hey, I'm interested in the group. Can you tell me more? All right. So I don't normally get questions on YouTube, but somebody sent me a question on YouTube, so I'm going to read that out. This may be a common question, but my son's pickiness with food started when he turned 1, and he had a stomach bug. Ever since then, he became picky. Lately, he stopped eating his favorite food. How to get him to try new foods? He has a problem with texture and he's in OT. Okay, so if we were having a conversation one-on-one, I would ask you more about like what textures he prefers. And sometimes parents will say that they have a texture preference, but then when I ask them other like more questions, like, can you tell me some of the foods they like? They actually eat a variety of textures. So think really carefully, like make a list of what foods does your child eat, and have a look, are they eating a variety of textures? Because oftentimes they are, which is great. Okay, so when the child is sick, in this new group that I'm halfway through at the moment, I started doing, I've got these modules with additional voice notes for like frequently asked questions. And when the child gets sick, that's something that comes up. Obviously, children get sick quite often. It's terrible, but they get sick quite often, and that's when we tend to fall into bad habits where we cater to the child. Oh, they're not hungry, so I only give them ice cream, or I only give them foods I know they're going to eat. And it's really hard to break that cycle. I have a feeling that's what happened here. It tracks with the age of the child, that's when they're like, oh, well, I know I get ice cream now, or I know I get crinkly bag snacks that I like all the time, and I want that. I'm going to say no to everything else. So sometimes being sick can be the thing that catapults you into this issue of pickiness. And what you're saying, he won't try things, and he's dropped his favorite foods. I'm in 2 minds about that. Dropping a favorite food can be something that is not surprising. If your child, let's say your child loves pasta, like red sauce pasta. If you feed them that 3 times a week, they are undoubtedly going to get burned out on it. So if that's why he's dropped that favorite food, I'm not surprised. He just needs to have some time without it. And on the flip side of that, don't give your child the same reliable foods all the time, because they will burn out on them. Okay, so what you said about how to get him to try new foods, that's where I would recommend my online course, because that will help you make food fun, and it'll help you change the way you communicate at meal times. Because when we ask kids to try foods, that's pressuring. And I'm not saying that you're pressuring, because there's a good chance you're not. Or you might be doing like small things of pressure that they add up. They might not be as overt as, you need to eat your food, you need to try this. It might not be that. And it's probably not that. If you're here and you've watched some of my content, you're probably trying really hard to not do those things, which is wonderful. So keep doing that. But sometimes parents say things like, oh, it's really healthy, it'll help you grow. That's pressure. I know no one wants to hear that, but that's pressure. Praising your child for trying something is pressuring them too. Imagine someone like applauding you at your dinner time because you ate, like, imagine if my friend applauded me when I ate those onions in the salad. I would have been mortified. I probably would have laughed. But like, I'm also an adult with a fully formed brain, and I know that I'm an equal with my friend. And if I asked her to stop, she would. Whereas a child doesn't necessarily have that same respect and balance, because they're not your equal. So that's something to think about as well. All right. So this mum, Tiana, says, so pizza, peanut butter, bread. Those are very different textures, depending on what kind of peanut butter. Is it smooth? Is it crunchy? Honestly, it doesn't really matter. But if he accepts both, then that's 2 different textures of peanut butter. But pizza in itself actually has a lot of different textures. The middle part of the pizza tends to be soft. And if it's got cheese and it's melted and it's stringy, that's a very different texture versus the outside of the crust, which is quite crunchy and crispy. So a pizza itself is actually quite a complex food. Like, it's really a complex food when you think about it. And bread, depending if they eat it raw, untoasted versus toasted, those are different textures as well. So something to think about there. That's a variety of different texture, which is a good thing. All right. I'm quickly jumping back over into Instagram and TikTok. I'll answer one more question and then I really do need to go. Well, I might answer 2 questions. I'm just kind of reading to see what questions have been sent. Don't you hate it when you talk so much that your tea is cold by the time you go back to drink it? All right. Oh, Torianne, if you're still on here, beautiful, send me a message and we'll see what we can tee up, because I'm all for like the professional development for other professions as well, because it's a really important thing. Okay. I also saw quite a few questions come in over on Instagram as well. Been following your YouTube videos, no pressure on them. Now they eat most of their meals, organic vegetable-based meals with no problems. That's fantastic. And I also wanted to say, because you put in brackets there, like organic vegetable-based meals, it's okay. Like, I don't normally talk about this because there are so many other creators that do this way better than I would do it. I don't have patience for this. Like Food Science Babe, I highly recommend. And Liam, who's also a dietitian, he calls out all the bullshit online about like organic and like seed oils and all that other crap. So if you don't follow them, go and look them up. They have accounts on Instagram and TikTok. They're fantastic. That vegetables don't have to be organic. Like conventionally grown vegetables are great too. Okay. Karina, my girls used to only eat nuggets, garlic bread, chips, and party pies, and they wouldn't eat anything else. You said used to. Do they now eat other things? Oh, sorry, you're the same person. Oh my gosh. I thought it was a different profile picture. And now you said that since following YouTube and not pressuring them, they're eating all these other foods. That's amazing. I thought you were going to ask a question. Yay. All right. I need to go and find one last question to answer. All right. Mama Libra says she refuses to try anything new. I'm not sure if you had put another comment somewhere else that I'm missing, where how old your child is or anything like that. Earlier on in the live, I was talking about, yeah, absolutely. Tiana, check it out and let me know. The course is Mealtimes Without Meltdowns. Okay, so for a child who's refusing anything new, depending on their age, of course, if you are on the live, could you let me know the child's age? What I mentioned earlier about this 20-month-old picky eater. Oh, just turned 7. Beautiful. How long has that been going on? Has it been happening for like a long time, like since she was 2 or 3? Or is it something that happened more recently? Because if it's something that happened from a long time ago, it either way, it can be, you can fix it or you can improve it. Since she was about 4. So that's a long time considering how, like, if she's 7, since she's 4, that's 3 years, and she's been eating since she was 6 months old. So she's been eating for 6.5 years. That's 6.5, that's almost half of her life that she's had these issues. So that's probably the entire life that she can remember too, that she's always struggles to try new things. So what I would recommend, and I did mention this earlier on the live, I don't know if you were here or not, but making food fun is so underrated. And you can make food fun without coercing children to eat. You don't have to, like, I started this live off by grilling somebody who I stitched a video where the person had taken like a pretend tool and like put it on the child's belly and said, oh, it says you've got room for 2 more broccolis. You can eat 2 more broccolis. That is coercive, and it's pressuring, and it's minimizing the child, it's dismissive, it's all kinds of things that I don't recommend. So you can make foods fun by talking about their shape, their texture, their flavor. Give your own description. You can like peel the broccoli stems off into little pieces, and you can make a little garden with them. You can make a little smiley face with them. You can pretend it's like the end of your nose. I don't have anything that I can really do that with here. Let's take my little apple. It can be your nose, and you can pretend that, or you can like put the stem in your mouth and you can hold it on the side of your mouth and have it like hanging out there. Like, what? I don't don't see anything on the side of my mouth. What do you mean there's something there? So you can quote unquote force an interaction through being playful. And it's not forcing an interaction because you're not actually forcing it. What you are doing is you're making it accessible, you're making it enjoyable, you're making it fun. That's what I would recommend. And my online course, Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, has so many resources to help you reach your child and help engage them so that they want to try the new foods or different foods. That's what we want to do. For a 7-year-old, I might recommend the small coaching group in addition to the online course. You get access to the online course when you join the group program, so that you can start working through it now. The next group starts in May. We're halfway through my current group, so the next one starts in May. There's a 15% early bird for those of you who register in April. There are already a couple of spots taken, so you can get started now on the online course while you're waiting for the group to start, because that can help clear up a few of the issues that you're having by working through the course now, and then it exposes more issues that we can work on during the group. So if that's something that you're interested in, send me a private message. Let me know you came from the live. Hey Talia, saw you on the live. I'm interested in your group. My child is 6 years old, doesn't like to try foods. Like, these are my top 3 problems or top 2 problems. And I want to make sure that the group is the right fit for you, and we'll go from there. All right. Christina, I didn't talk about food anxiety earlier on in this live. I'm going to be saving it on YouTube and also on Instagram. So if you missed that part of the live, you can go back and watch it. You can also shoot me a private message and ask me, tell me a little bit more about your 6-year-old, and we can figure out a way to get you the help that you need. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been really nice to do this live. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, depending where you are. I'm off to the shops to grab some things, yarn, because I'm out of purple yarn for my daughter, and stuff from Aldi. All right. Have a great day, and thanks again for being here, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.